November 29th and 30th at Vinoy Park along St. Pete's waterfront. Get details at shopapaloozafestival.com. You may be thinking about charitable giving before 2025 comes to a close. Community Foundation Tampa Bay is your trusted partner to simplify year-end gifts and align them with your philanthropic goals. Learn more at cftampabay.org.
Charter schools run by for-profit companies want to move on to public school campuses across Florida. If your kid's school was one of them, how would you feel about a charter school sharing space rent-free? Is it a real estate grab or just a smart use of available space? I'm Matthew Petty, and coming up this hour on Florida Matters Live and Local, hear the latest on expansions plans for Schools of Hope charter schools. You can weigh in, call 813-755-6562 or email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Also, the federal student aid application process is crucial for college-bound kids. Planning for college next year? We'll talk about what to expect from what's called FAFSA. And it's a great time of year to get outside. Take a hike, go camp. We'll talk with a seasoned camper about where to go and what to pack. All this and your calls on Florida Matters Live and Local after these headlines.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Mourners are gathered inside the Washington National Cathedral for former Vice President Dick Cheney's funeral. Former President George W. Bush is among those to eulogize his former vice president.
Though not a happy assignment, I do consider it an easy one, because there was so much to like and admire about Dick Cheney. Dick was a stoical man, and I doubt he left his life with any complaints about the time given to him or its end.
Cheney was one of the most powerful political figures of his time. The Republican served as White House Chief of Staff, a member of Congress, a defense secretary, and a vice president alongside President George W. Bush for 2 terms. Cheney was a chief architect of Bush's war on terror post 9/11 and a force behind the U.S. invasion of Iraq. In his later years, Cheney was still a hardline conservative, but did not support President Trump, whom Cheney described as the greatest individual threat to our republic. Neither Trump nor Vice President J.D. Vance was in attendance. The Labor Department says U.S. employers added 119,000 jobs in September, more than expected, but job growth in the summer was weaker than first reported. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the new numbers were delayed by the 6-week government shutdown.
The report shows hiring was uneven in September. Healthcare and hospitality continued to add workers, but factories and warehouses shed jobs. The unemployment rate inched up to 4.4%, while the workforce grew. Job gains for the 2 previous months were revised down by a total of 33,000 jobs. While the information in today's release is somewhat stale, it's the last jobs report the Federal Reserve will get before its next decision in December on interest rates. Snapshots of the October and November job market have been delayed by the government shutdown. Some of the October figures, including the unemployment rate, were not gathered at all. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
The CDC's change is alarming public health experts. They are already worried about a drop in childhood vaccination, which has led to a resurgence of dangerous childhood diseases like measles and whooping cough. Rob Stein, NPR News.
The Dow is down 39 points. This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. BP-type oil spill is real.
It's our mission to make sure that the country understands that the Gulf is a viable, integral part to the survival of the United States of America in terms of any energy production, seafood, tourism, and the endangered.
Now, as WUSF's Kathy Carter reports, Page is debuting a world premiere dance with the Sarasota Ballet.
Although he's steeped in the classical language of ballet, Ashley Page has for years also experimented with modern dance techniques. He says his interest in different forms of movement came early in his career as a dancer in the mid-'80s.
It coincided with a sort of golden age, I would say, of contemporary dance in London. Quite a lot of that was an Anglo-American alliance, principally, I would say, from New York. And then I started working with some of the dancers from that world in very different techniques.
Page's dance is set to the music of Stravinsky and will be performed live by the Sarasota Orchestra. I'm Kathy Carter, WUSF 89.7 News.
The Sarasota Ballet performs Written Motion Friday and Saturday at the Sarasota Opera House. Details at WUSF.org. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
Funding for WUSF comes from listeners like you, and also Nova Southeastern University. NSU is committed to students who reflect their communities and competitive wages for its graduates. Those values have made NSU a Carnegie Opportunity University. More at nova.edu.
Every story, every newscast, every moment you hear on WUSF is made possible by the generosity of listeners like you. Thank you. Join now as a brand new monthly sustainer to ensure the important work of WUSF continues. Just visit WUSF.org/donate and support WUSF today.
This is Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. We're broadcasting from the Doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio in Tampa. Well, charter schools run by for-profit companies are asking to take over more unused space at dozens of public schools across Tampa Bay. It's all part of an expansion of the state of Florida's Schools of Hope charter school program. The program once meant to provide taxpayer money for charter schools in places with persistently poor performing public schools. The barometer, test scores, graduation rates, and things like that. Requests from charter schools have spread across the state for space in public schools. And to tell us more about the companies and what they are asking of public schools and how those public schools are responding, here's WSF's Kerry Sheridan. Kerry, thanks for being with us this afternoon.
Oh, glad to be here.
And if you've got questions about what this charter school expansion could mean for public schools in your neighbourhood, give us a call. 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can shoot us an email to FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, Kerry, just remind us what co-location actually means and what these charter schools are asking for.
That's the word of the hour, co-location, Matthew. It means basically sharing campus space. It means that a charter school can come in to a public school that has unused space. They're asking for contiguous space, so they want
what does that mean?
That means like one area. So,
okay.
Say that a bunch of classrooms are down by about 10 kids. They don't want that. They want the school classrooms to consolidate and give them a chunk of space that they can set up their own school in, and this is all inside a public school.
All right, so sharing is caring, right? But public schools maybe not in such a sharing mood. Let's just have a listen to Hillsborough County School Board member Nadia Combs. Here she is talking at a meeting earlier this week.
The one thing I can't do is keep living my life with fear and not speaking out against the things that are wrong. 100% co-location is wrong. What we need to do is keep talking about it so people understand what's happening. But what I'm not going to do is stop building or growing because of the fear of what's happening for the Department of Education. I will put up any charter school, any private school against Hillsborough County Public Schools. We have amazing teachers. We have amazing curriculum, and it drives students back.
All right, so that's Nadia Combs with Hillsborough County School Board there. Just a little context there, if you could, Kerry. What's she talking about when she says we are not going to keep growing and building new schools?
Well, this was a school board meeting earlier this week, and the board was deciding on whether to go ahead with plans to build 2 new schools because of the threat of these charter takeovers. One of the board members pointed out, new schools never open completely full. So a new school could be built by the public school district, and a charter could sweep in and say, okay, we want half of that space because it's not full yet. So the Hillsborough County School Board, though, decided to go ahead, build these 2 new schools at a cost of around $180 million because they're needed. They're expanding populations, and they're not going to live in fear. That's what Nadia Combs was saying.
All right, and so Hillsborough County, they've been sent, or schools in Hillsborough County have been sent, what, is it 27, or it's in the 20s, the number
22,
of letters? 22,
yeah.
right. So 22 letters have been sent from charter school companies saying we would like to take some unused space on your campuses. What about other school districts? Because you've been reporting a lot on what's happening in Sarasota, but where else in the Tampa Bay region are you looking and seeing this kind of expansion of charter schools saying we'd like to use up some of the space if we could?
Yeah, we got the list this week of all the schools across the state. So there's 690 schools across Florida who've received letters from these School of Hope operators. Some are legitimate and recognized by the state, some are not. A lot of them went to the Miami area, Broward County, Miami-Dade County, but our area here, Tampa Bay area, also got a good number of them, 37 in Pinellas County, 37 public schools targeted by Schools of Hope charters, 22 in Hillsborough. We had a couple in Manatee and a couple in Sarasota as well, and about 6 in Pasco.
Okay, let's go to the phones. We've got Stephen on the line. Stephen, you're on the air. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm a former superintendent of schools from New York City, now living in St. Petersburg, actually. And what we found was that in many cases, this response from charter schools was because of poor performance of public schools. And what essentially did was we made the Board of Education in New York the chartering agency, and we opened new schools within underutilized buildings.
Okay.
So that we were operating 2 schools simultaneously in the building, worked very successfully.
Okay, but that was the initiative was coming from within the school district, right? Whereas in the situation we're looking at here in Florida, and Kerry, correct me if I'm wrong, it's basically a charter school coming in saying, we see you've got some unused space, we'd love to use it, here's our plan.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what Stephen's talking about sounds interesting. In New York, if the school board was able to take control of it, is that how that worked?
What happened was that the school board took the initiative and got ahead of this. So what's happened is the demand for charter schools in New York is way down because the school board itself offers choices.
Yeah.
It went from 143 high schools to 540 high schools simply by co-locating our own new schools within underutilized space. If the board just sits around and lets idle space sit there, of course somebody's going to want it.
Yeah, Stephen, your call's breaking up a little bit, but I appreciate you making that point. It sounds like some school districts across the country have kind of taken a more proactive approach to it. Thank you so much, Stephen. Let's go to the phones again. We've got Lewis on the line. Lewis, you're on the air.
Good morning. How are you today?
Very good. Yeah, what's on your mind?
Okay, I have been listening to this for a while now, but my question is, when the charter school moves in, where are the students going to come from? Are they also going to get students from the school where they move in?
Yeah, a great question, Lewis. Thank you so much. What about that, Kerry? Is that a sort of topic of discussion in school boards that you're hearing, or even from the charter school companies?
Yeah, great question there, Lewis. Other people have asked that too and pointed out that if school districts in our area are having lower enrollment, where are the students going to come from? And some people think that probably the charter would be siphoning off students from the public school that they move into. So they might get some kids from around the area who are just interested in a new option, but there's also quite likely the possibility that some of the public school kids might try the charter. And it's interesting when you look at these letters that the the charters have sent, they say they want a certain amount of space, however much is available currently, say it's 200 student seats. But within 5 years, they want to grow to 800 seats, which is the whole capacity of that particular school. So
Wow.
it really does look like an attempt at a takeover.
Well, Kerry, you've been trying to contact Schools of Hope operators to get their take. You did speak to somebody called Lynn Norman Tech, who's the Executive Director of Florida Charter School Alliance. Let's just take a little bit of a listen to what she said to you.
We all serve those kids, and working together makes sense. So I definitely don't think it's a takeover. I think it's a great opportunity to have a discussion about where public education is today and how do quality providers meet the needs and demands of parents, of today's parent.
All right, so, the public schools, as you say, Kerry, sort of see it as a takeover. Lynn Norman Tech says it isn't, and she's, I gather, speaking on behalf of charter schools?
Yes, she represents a membership organization, and the members of her group are charter schools.
Mm-hmm.
So she's speaking on behalf of them. And when I asked her about that, I said, these aren't really notices. These are not an invitation to a conversation letters. These are, notice of intent to occupy letters. And she brushed that aside and said, no, it's not that. It's just a chance for a conversation.
Now, there's a big objection from public schools, right? They say private companies essentially would get something for nothing. They're claiming that classrooms, other school buildings and facilities, even the power bill would be provided to the charter school company free of charge. Did you talk to Lynn Norman Tech about that? And if so, what did she say?
She said some of those details are still being ironed out. But it does clearly say in this rule document from the Florida Department of Education that the school district must permit a School of Hope to have the effective use and practical use of all or part of the facility at no cost. And that includes without limits custodial services, maintenance, school safety, food services, nursing, and transportation.
All right.
So the language as it is right now really is in favor of the charter and puts the bill all on the public school.
All right, and we've got a question about that, I think, from Kit, who is on the line now. Kit, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm a retired school teacher, and I had questions about the financing of these facilities. I think you just addressed that in your question there. But adding on to that, in addition, I'm just wondering in general, the charter, as a school teacher, I had a bunch of hoops to jump through for certification, and the public schools are rigorously rated with their school grade every year. Are the private schools subject to those same requirements for teacher certification and school grading?
Great question, Kit. What about that, Kerry? I wonder if that's sort of part of this discussion around sort of the charter schools moving into these unused parts of the campuses of public schools.
Yeah, that is a great question, and it's one that really deserves a closer look. I did ask Lynn Norman Tech about that. I said one of the main criticisms of these charter schools is that the teachers may not be certified or they don't have to meet the same level of rigor that a public school district has to. And she insisted that they are certified, but across the board, I'm not sure that every single student that is hired, a teacher that's hired is certified. So it is something that we should look at closely and look at the ways that charter school students are measured compared to public schools, because it does seem quite different.
Indeed. We're going to have to leave the conversation there, but Kerry Sheridan, thank you so much for your detailed reporting. I'm sure we'll have you back on Florida Matters Live and Local to talk more about updates as these public schools respond to requests from charter schools to move into unused campus space. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, coming up in about 10 minutes, if you've got a kid headed to college or you're college bound yourself, there are changes to how you can apply for student aid. We'll talk about it and we'll take your calls. But first, are you old enough to remember the airlift that sent thousands of kids from Castro's Cuba to resettle in the United States? That's coming up next on Florida Matters Live and Local. Stay with us.
WUSF depends on contributions from people like you. And Brandon Business Machines. Brandon Business Machines is a locally owned and operated office equipment dealer and IT support company. They've been serving the Tampa Bay area for 44 years with copier and computer sales and service. Online at bbmusa.com.
I'm Tiziana Deering. Americans who rely on Obamacare will pay huge premiums next year unless Congress can find a way to extend ACA tax credits before the end of the year. Two congressmen, one Republican, one Democrat, say they have a plan to extend the credits and fix the ACA. We'll talk with them next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. Now, if you're a parent, there's probably not many things you wouldn't do to give your kids a better chance at a better life. But what if it involved putting them on a plane and sending them across the ocean to a foreign country, not knowing when you'd see them again? 65 years ago, thousands of families in Cuba made that difficult choice to send their children to Miami to escape the Castro regime. Operation Pedro Pan ferried more than 14,000 unaccompanied children from Cuba over a 2-year period. They ranged in age from 4 years old, to 16. Now, most were reunited with their parents after a few months, but some had to wait much longer. For more, here's Tony Aguiz. He's a South Florida managing principal at the accounting firm BDO USA. He came to the United States as a child as part of Operation Pedro Pan. Tony, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, good morning. Thank you.
So, moving 14,000 children in secret out of Cuba over 2 years must have been a massive task, and it was coordinated by the Catholic Church and the U.S. government. I imagine you've thought quite a lot about this in the intervening years. How did the operation get started, and how did they pull this thing off?
I'm having a little problem, but let me see if I can answer the question and hearing.
Sure.
Remember, there were 14,000. This started in 1960, and it went on through the missile crisis almost at the end of 62.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 14,000 unaccompanied minors, and not just Catholic, Jewish kids, Methodists, Presbyterians, but the majority were Catholics. And there was a Monsignor here in Miami by the name of Brian Walsh, an Irish Monsignor, and he had basically the right to issue waiver visas through the Kennedy White House and the State Department at that time. So if they had a family that wanted to bring their kids out of Cuba, Monsignor Walsh should be able to generate the waiver visas to get them out of the country.
Now, you came to Florida as part of this program. You were 9 years old when you landed in Miami. What do you remember of that flight out of Cuba and arriving in this brand new country?
What I remember, the last time I saw Cuba, I haven't really been back, and it was almost like the last part of the island when I first saw the water. When we took off Havana, Rancho Boyero Airport, Rancho Boyero in Spanish. Now it's called Jose Marti, but back then it was Rancho Boyeros. Everyone in the plane clapped. I mean, all of a sudden everyone felt freedom and started clapping on the plane. And then things, everybody realized after the clapping that they were free. And hopefully the plane wouldn't be diverted back to Havana, but we arrived in Miami about almost 30 minutes after. It was my first plane ride. I had never left, actually, Havana. I've gone to Matanzas, which is another province of Cuba, but I never really flown out of the country in an airplane. And when I arrived in Miami, obviously the airport wasn't what it is today. Miami was smaller than Havana at that time. And there were people, you could almost touch the people without any type of barriers back then. I mean, there were no terrorist effects or anything in 62 when I arrived in Miami, and there was like an open balcony on top of the airport where I saw a lot of people from my neighborhood. As a matter of fact, a family that had left 2 days before me, and my mom had taken me to the airport. But it was an amazing day in my life to be able to come to the United States. March 24th of 62.
Sounds like you remember it just like it was yesterday, Tony.
No, it is. And then the next day I arrived where a city that I adore, Tampa, Florida. I arrived there with my brother. It was March 25th of 62. And I went to Gary Elementary in the Hyde Park area. I passed third grade in 30-some days. And that summer, my brother basically couldn't really take care of me, so he took me to Catholic Charities, and they became my legal guardian for 5 years.
Wow.
Until my parents were able to leave Cuba.
I want to ask you about that, but I've got a call coming in here from Richard. Richard, you're on the air. I believe you've got a story to share too.
Okay.
Yeah, no, just I was listening to the station today. Great program. My parents are from Cuba. My mom just passed just recently. And she would tell me stories of what you're talking about, and how much she left behind. My father owned. His father owned a finca de tabaco. It's a tobacco farm. Pinar del Rio is where my dad grew up, and then my mom grew up in Havana. But they would tell us stories of what they left behind and how much the struggles they faced here.
Yeah.
Of having literally nothing when they arrived. Nothing, just the clothes they were wearing, pretty much.
And so, Richard, that your parents, or your mother at least, was part of the Pedro Pan airlift?
Yes, I believe so. She would tell me stories. So.
Yeah. Richard, thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate it. Well, Tony, let me come back to you. I mean, as you said, it took you 5 years before you and your parents got back together again in Tampa. I mean, what were those years like for you as a kid? That's a pretty formative time in your life.
No, it was very homesick. When I arrived, I was matriculated at Mary Help of Christians, and I lived there for 5 years until my parents were able to leave Cuba in 67. But Mary Help gave me a wonderful environment. The priests there were like incredible. Teachers, mentors, disciplinarians, but they really made such a positive influence on my life that I can never thank the Salesians and Mary Helper Christians.
Tony, yeah, it sounds it sounds like you're getting a bit emotional there, but yeah, it's a lot to process, right? But just in the last kind of 30 seconds or so we have here, Tony, do you sometimes think about what your life would have been like had you not gotten on that plane and been part of that airlift?
No, it really would have been terrible. Keep in mind, but Cuba prior to 59 had an economy larger than Spain's and the equivalent of Italy's. So it was really a booming country and an economy, but all of a sudden Castro took over in 59. So after that in 60 and 61, had I left Cuba, either I probably, would be starving today, like everyone in the island, and maybe with an education, but I seriously doubt what type of education, because it was all indoctrination in schools, etc. All the private schools were closed down in the island, 190 of them in May of 61. And then you had to go get indoctrinated. And I was lucky enough to go to a tutor on a full-time basis until my parents were able to get me out of the country.
Yeah. Tony, it's such an incredible story, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share some of your memories about it. Tony Gies is a South Florida managing principal at the accounting firm BDO USA. He came to the United States as a child as part of the Pedro Pan program, which kicked off 65 years ago. Tony, thank you so much.
No, thank you for your time.
Well, coming up next, if you've got a kid headed to college or you're college-bound yourself, there are changes to how you can apply for student aid. We'll talk about it and take your calls on Florida Matters, live and local. Stay with us.
Support for WUSF comes from listeners like you and from Humana and Ravello Medical, dedicated to offering whole-person health and wellness through health plans and healthcare. Other providers are available. Live screenings of the Metropolitan Opera, continuing with Arabella on Saturday, November 22nd. Presented by Westminster Communities of Florida. Learn more at ollie.eckerd.edu.
On the next Fresh Air, dream scientist Michelle Carr. She runs a sleep lab where she studies people as they're dreaming with a focus on nightmares and lucid dreaming. She'll talk about her new book, Nightmare Obscura, and how she says we can change our recurring nightmares. Join us.
Great conversation on Fresh Air tonight at 7 on WUSF.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, if you're preparing for college, how to pay for it is probably top of mind. There are some changes, though, to the federal student aid application process. So if you've got a college-bound kid or you're headed there yourself, we're about to talk about what to expect from FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid. Dave Sobush is the Director of Research Policy at Florida College Access Network, FCAN. FCAN's goal is to ensure all Floridians have access to education after high school. Dave, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Now, if you've got questions about FAFSA, maybe you've already started the process or you're about to apply for student aid, give us a call, talk to us, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also shoot us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, Dave, let's start with some of the changes this year. What exactly has changed about how people can go about getting some federal student aid?
Well, I'd say the number one change, and thank you for asking, is that the FAFSA was released on time. In fact, it was released a little bit early, and the FAFSA is running smoothly. And that was not the case a few years ago, some technical glitches. And I'm not just speaking to this as a college access professional. I'm also the parent of a high school senior. And so we were very glad that the FAFSA was released on time, bug-free, and that it was a very smooth process to apply for federal student aid.
Okay, so, and just kind of walk me through the timeline here. So it opened in August and September, right, summer, but this is for college next year, right?
That's correct. We call it the 26-27 FAFSA. That's the cycle we're in right now, because that will start with the fall 26 through summer 27 semester. So high school seniors that are in the class of 2026 this May will be applying for the 26-27 cycle, as will returning students that need federal aid. And so what we saw a few years ago when the Better FAFSA was released, and the Better FAFSA was intended to reduce the amount of paperwork by encouraging federal systems to talk to each other, so you didn't have to tell the IRS one thing and then turn around a few months later and tell the Department of Education the same exact thing. Instead, the Department of Ed would ask the IRS for that information. It was delayed by several years, and it was not the smoothest rollout. The FAFSA was not released until the very end of December of 23. Last year, we saw the FAFSA released in mid-November. This year, the FAFSA was released to everybody ahead of the October 1st traditional deadline, or the traditional launch date. And I actually completed the FAFSA with my son in late September. That was after a lot of beta testing. We were proud that Florida was chosen as a beta test site down in Broward County. U.S. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon was down there for a FAFSA completion event for that beta testing, where over 1,000 families were able to get assistance in walking through the FAFSA. So the Better FAFSA is finally here, and it's a relatively smooth and unencumbered process.
Wow, let's hope it continues that way. But I mean, it's kind of a long process, right? You've got to basically apply more than a year out from actually going to college.
You don't have to. In fact, you can still apply for aid in the 25-26 cycle right now, and we've got the fall semester getting ready to wind up. But there are still students that apply for the FAFSA going into the academic year in their post-secondary institutions. So you actually have close to 15 months, maybe even 18 months to apply within a FAFSA cycle. So it's never too late. The reason FCAN and others encourage early completion of the FAFSA is it helps students and families have all the information they need to make the right decision about their post-secondary future.
Yeah.
We have a situation where by 2031, over 64% of jobs in the state of Florida are going to require some sort of post-secondary education. And I'm here to tell you, as an economic developer by trade, 100% of the good jobs are going to require some sort of training beyond high school. And the FAFSA helps you understand the resources you have available for that post-secondary education. And so the reason we encourage early FAFSA completion as opposed to FAFSA completion at any time is it aligns with the funding decisions and the aid decisions that are produced by the post-secondary institutions. Typically, those are generated in the month of May. So we want to make sure that students are completing the FAFSA by the end of March, which is the traditional end of our Florida FAFSA challenge. And so the earlier you complete the FAFSA, the better off you'll be in terms of some of the institutional aid that is offered by the individual institutions, as well as the host of Pell Grants, work-study opportunities, and if it comes down to it, the subsidized loans that are offered.
Okay, yeah, so a lot of options there, a lot of kind of different buckets of aid you can dip into. For those just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA. We're with Dave Sobush, Director of Research Policy at Florida College Access Network, talking about how to apply, what you need to do to get your ducks in a row to get some of that aid and make it easier to get into higher education. Give us a call if you've got questions about it. Maybe you're going through the process yourself. Maybe you've got some questions about how to get started. 813-755-6562 is the number. 813-755-6562. Maybe you're in the midst of deciding what school to attend, public or private, near home or out of state. Let us know what your biggest question is. 813-755-6562. Okay, so you mentioned Pell Grants in there. Dave, can you kind of explain? That's a different calculation. It's separate from the Student Aid Index, right? So what are we talking about here? How much money could be available from Pell funds? Who's eligible?
So the Pell Grant is the largest funding source of grant-based aid, so aid that does not need to be repaid. It is not work-study. It is not a loan. That it's available largely to lower-income families. It is a great equalizer. It is the greatest tool that we have for economic mobility in this country. And what the Student Aid Index, since you mentioned that, that is something that is calculated through the FAFSA, and that helps determine whether or not a student is Pell eligible. And the Pell grant, on average, has paid to Floridians around $5,600 for a year's worth of education, which is more than enough to cover tuition and fees at our Florida college system institutions and most of our state university system institutions.
Right. So you don't even have to be looking at housing to pay out of pocket if you got that.
Well, anything that's left over, your Pell Grant can go towards your housing costs as well. So it's available for lower income families. So it is entirely so important for students, especially lower income students, who may be the first ones to say, I'm not thinking about post-secondary education. My family can't afford it. They're the ones most likely to be eligible for those Pell Grants, which again are dollars that do not need to be repaid. It's not work study. It allows, for grant-based funding for students to pursue their post-secondary education and their career dreams.
Right, but you can't receive a Pell Grant on top of other non-federal aid, right? So state or institutional or other scholarships is completely separate. Is that right?
It is separate and it is stackable. So you can receive a Pell Grant and you can receive state-based aid. In fact, one of the requirements for Florida's need-based aid grant program, which is the Florida Student Assistance Grant, is that you apply for a Pell Grant. So it is all stackable. And many times what you see is institutions will layer on institutional-based dollars on top of Pell Grants in their award letters.
Is it the same kind of deadline as other student aid, or is it a different deadline for Pell Grant applications?
The earlier, the better.
Okay. That's what you
with
always tell your kids, right? When it comes to completing homework or anything else related to school, just get it done as soon as you can.
That's what I say. I don't know that they always listen, but yeah, that's certainly what I say. So the earlier you apply, which is why we encourage, and many of our local college access network partners across the state encourage early FAFSA completion as opposed to that FAFSA completion at any time, because you get towards the front of the line, not just for the formulaic based dollars that are, part of like the Pell Grant and stuff like that, but rather some of those institutional based dollars. So go into your FAFSA completion session with an idea of who you want to get your FAFSA report, and that will facilitate an earlier decision about the amount of aid that you may be eligible for from those institutions.
Dave, FCAD works with a lot of students who are maybe the first in their family to attend college, and money can be a big unknown. So how important is financial stability, whether it's from federal aid or state aid or other sources? How important is that financial stability, to their success in college?
By a degree of around 75%, financial considerations are the number one reason why students do not pursue an education beyond high school. And it's also the number one reason why students stop out, or that's what we call it when a student is enrolled, attends, but does not finish or complete their education. So financial
stop out, you say?
Stop out.
Okay.
Yeah. So the student stops out of their post-secondary education. So those financial considerations are the number one barrier to college access, college enrollment, college attainment, and ultimately the state realizing its economic goals.
Just kind of, finances in general can be, I imagine that can be a bit of a challenge too, right? Can somebody use part of their loans for living expenses per se?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, one of the great things about Florida's higher education system is that we have not raised tuition and fees since 2014. So we're the only state to have done that. It's a big part of the reason why Florida is the number one state for higher education, as ranked by U.S. News and World Report, and we're very proud of that. But as we've seen in other parts of society, and students are not immune to this, the cost of food and housing and transportation have all increased. So your award is based on the total cost of attendance, which includes both tuition and fees, books, as well as housing and food.
Is there like a central place where people can go for information, help filling out their FAFSA, or just kind of understanding what's new this year, what changes there may be, or just their eligibility for some of these kind of aid packages?
Absolutely. And I would encourage every student, to speak with their high school guidance counselor, who would be more than happy to talk to them about the FAFSA. We also have across this state in 19 different communities covering about 85% of the state's school-going population. We have local college access networks, and each county and each district of this state has an education foundation. Any one of those groups or organizations would be delighted to help a student and family complete their FAFSA, understand what they need to interpret their award letter, and ultimately help that student realize their career aspirations.
Aside from your personal experience, do you have a rough estimate of how long it takes to get through all the paperwork you need for FAFSA, for the federal student aid assistance?
The latest estimate that I've seen from the National College Attainment Network, which is sort of our national organization, is that FAFSA can be completed in 7 to 10 minutes.
That's it?
And that's it. And one of the biggest stumbling blocks to that is you used to have to go to the FAFSA completion portal with your federal student aid ID. That is now something you can get done sort of simultaneously. It used to be that you needed to have, as a student who initiates the FAFSA process, you needed to have a lot of your parents' information in hand My son just needed my email. And so he typed in my email, and I got invited to complete my portion of his FAFSA application. And that was that. So it really is, I don't want to say that everything is working as smoothly as possible, because there's always room for improvement. But the goal and aspirations of that better FAFSA have, in large part, been realized.
We're going to have to leave the conversation there, but Dave Sobush, Director of Research Policy at the Florida College Access Network, thank you so much for your insights.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Well, coming up on Florida Matters Live and Local, if you're a camper or interested in camping, you're going to want to stick around for our next guest. We're talking about camping and why Florida is one of the top places for it. Stay with us.
Visit Gainesville, Alachua County is where seasonal flavors fill local craft breweries along the celebrated Ale Trail, catering to both casual tasters and connoisseurs. Details at visitgainesville.com. Kimberly Akimbo, the new Tony Award-winning musical about growing up and growing old, in no particular order. It's playing at the Straz Center in Tampa, now through November 23rd. Tickets and info at strazcenter.org.
I'm Alyssa Nadworny. The saying, beauty is pain, has convinced many to squeeze into high heels, tight corsets, or bow ties. A new book explores how beauty also brings us joy.
What draws me to the beauty industry is its multifaceted nature, between being something that both exploits us and provides us comfort.
Next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
On the Bay Blend podcast, we highlight things to do in the Tampa Bay area you might not even know about, like when I went to Rustic Steel Academy to try my talents at welding.
Do you think I have a future as a welder if I wanted to change career paths?
I think I would not quit your day job yet.
Well, at least he was honest. On the Bay Blend podcast, we give you the news and some fun in your own community. That's the Bay Blend from WUSF, wherever you listen to your podcasts, or online at WUSF.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Did you know Florida is the third best state in the country for camping? That's according to a recent study by Lawn Love. It's a lawn care service company. They based ratings on things like a campsite's access to trails and amenities, drinkable water, and toilets, the number of camping stores available in the state, and the safety of the campsite, including its cell phone coverage strength. How 21st century. You may have some extra free time with the holidays approaching, so we wanted to highlight some of the best camping sites in Tampa Bay in case you're wanting to head out into the woods soon. Do you have a favorite camping spot, or maybe you want to share some tips for camping newbies? Give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also send us a message at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. That's our email address, or on our YouTube channel. Well, Stephen Costa is the Adventure Trips Coordinator at the University of South Florida. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so you got a pretty cool job title. What do you do?
Yeah, so I work for the recreation department here at the University of South Florida, specifically on our outdoor recreation team, where we run a riverfront park, we have a bike shop and a rental center, and then I oversee our adventure trip program. So every weekend, specifically more centered around our fall and spring semester, we take students on outdoor trips. Camping, snorkeling, paddleboarding, surfing, kayaking, everything from a single day sunset paddle to a 11-day long camping trip throughout the U.S. and internationally as well.
Okay, what about in Florida? Do you do a lot of camping around the state?
Yeah, we definitely do. We spend a lot of time getting students outdoors in Florida. There's a huge population here at USF that's either international students or from out of state, so we like to show them some of the more unique spots around the state that aren't necessarily the beaches that I think get a lot of attention. We have some incredible springs. The Everglades are one of my favorite spots in the world, and we have an incredible Ocala National Forest right in the center of our state with some of the best springs and snorkeling and diving that I've ever experienced.
All right, so I got to ask about creepy crawlies and bugs? Because sure, the Everglades fantastic to kind of look at, but do you want to really spend a night there with those mosquitoes?
I would say a lot of people don't necessarily want to do that, but I think when I think about camping in Florida and camping a lot of places too, I think the seasonality depends on it a lot. Specifically, the Everglades, the recommended season for camping down there is November through April. Once the weather cools off and we get a little bit more into our dry season, and there's less standing water for those no-see-ums and mosquitoes to breed in.
What's a no-see-um?
A no-see-um is going to be like a little gnat kind of insect that also bites and causes an itching reaction.
Wow. That sounds very unpleasant.
It can be whenever there's a lot of them. So usually I only go down to the Everglades in the winter, kind of right around the holiday time. January, February is a great time to go down there and camp. And if you are visiting Florida, not at a time when it's great camping weather, a day trip down to the Everglades to do an airboat tour is also an awesome option, and you might experience less mosquitoes.
All right, so when you take these groups, and they're primarily students, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You get some staff as well along?
Yeah, some staff, some faculty, and then students, and then sometimes their relatives and significant others.
Okay, so anyone can come on these trips?
Yeah.
Are they total newbies most of the time?
I would say the majority of our students are total newbies. Being a school in Florida, I mean, if you look at the list of the top camping destinations, some of them being like California and Colorado, those people probably have a little bit more camping experience. Floridians maybe a little bit less camping experience. So our trip leaders that take students out are very prepared to teach people a lot, to provide a lot of environmental education on our trips. And one of the other benefits of our programs here at the university is one of our main goals is eliminating barriers for people to get outdoors, and part of our trips is we provide all the gear that people need, so tents, sleeping bags. The staff on the trip cook for the participants, and we plan a lot of the logistics. And the joke that we say is, if just show up with a change of clothes and some deodorant and we'll show you a good camping trip.
So are you one of the cooks, or is that somebody else's job?
I do enjoy being the camp cook when I have the chance. As the administrator, I don't get to go out as much, mostly on our bigger trips, but yeah, anytime I get to cook on a two-burner camp stove, I enjoy it.
So it sounds to me like you're kind of like the guide. If you're on one of these trips, if you're leading one, you're sort of like introducing people to the outdoors in some cases. You're trying to make sure they have a great experience. So you want to make them as comfortable as possible.
Yeah, I think comfortable as possible, as well as recognizing that sometimes Mother Nature throws things at us, and that's part of being in the outdoors. We have a scale of the types of fun. That type 1 fun is when it's fun in the moment, and then afterwards you reflect on it. But sometimes you have that type 2 fun, where in the moment it's not great, but afterwards it's a fun story to tell people.
Yeah, I've experienced some type 2 fun a little bit. I mean, I remember one camping trip with my brother. This is in New Zealand, mind you, so it was a bit mountainous. Up in the mountains. It was over the Christmas break, so it was summertime in New Zealand. But the weather can change really quickly. We had a snowstorm come in. It was raining too. Our tent froze overnight, got rained on, and then it froze solid. So we had to wait for it to thaw out before we could pack it up into the backpacks in the morning. But it was a great experience in retrospect, a little bit uncomfortable at the time.
Yeah.
What are some of the most uncomfortable moments you've had in the Florida outdoors?
One of my favorite places is the Everglades. Specifically, we do a trip where we sea kayak in the coastal portion of the Everglades in a region called the 10,000 Islands. And as you mentioned before, sometimes the bugs can be bad. Usually in the winter, you plan your campsites to be in the windward side of the island because that'll keep the bugs away. But I've been down there before where the wind dies down and you're sitting there, all the participants are in their tents and you're sitting there having to make some broccoli stir fry as the mosquitoes are circling around you, and you try to wear a jacket, but it's also a little warm out, so that can be kind of rough. And I've also, one of the other trips that we do through the university here is we do a 2-week study abroad trip to Iceland. And we spend some time in the capital city, then we backpack through the highlands. And
pretty volcanic over there, isn't
volcanic, and every day is a different environment that you get to hike through, and it's awesome. But similar to Florida, where the weather can change on a dime, in Iceland, the weather can change on a dime, where one day you're in shorts and a t-shirt, and the next day we were hiking, and I was wearing 3 layers, including a down jacket, and there was hail hitting us sideways, and it was 30-mile-an-hour winds, and I thought some people were going to get pushed over by it. So definitely got to be prepared for everything that nature throws at you, but that makes a fun story.
But you didn't lose anyone on that trip, right?
Didn't lose anyone, and I think it brought us all closer together as we kind of helped each other through it. And I think that's another great piece of the outdoors too.
If there's like 2 or 3 things people should know about camping, like what would those be?
Yeah, I think if people are starting to get into camping, some of the best things is when you're picking the destination, think about what you want to do. If you're going on a camping trip, are you going with a group of friends and your goal is just to kind of hang out, sit around the campfire, cook some good food, and spend some time with family? Are you going more for the activities? When you think about Florida, that can depend on the location you pick. Do you want to spend more time on the beach, maybe up in the Panhandle, on some of the beautiful state parks we have up there right on the coast and in the dunes? Do you want to see more wetlands and Everglades environments down in South Florida? Or do you want to take advantage of some of the incredible springs and do some snorkeling and scuba diving and picking your campsite that way? And I think another thing too is this kind of outdoor ethic that we teach in our programs called Leave No Trace, of when you're getting outdoors, thinking about as we get outdoors, we're going to leave a trace inherently in just getting out there. But how can we get out there to make sure that we preserve it for the future, taking our trash with us, being respectful of the other people in the campsite, and they're out there just trying to enjoy it as much as we are, taking good pictures and not taking those rocks with us. Let someone else take a picture and enjoy it next time as well.
Yeah, plus the rocks are heavy. You want to keep your pack light as you hike
exactly.
out. We're talking with Stephen Costa. He's the Adventure Trips Coordinator at the University of South Florida. You got a question about camping or an insight to share, give us a call, 813-755-6562. A question here from YouTube. Trixie writes, what is his favorite camping meal? I guess that's you, Stephen. What is your favorite camping meal?
My favorite camping meal? Wow. I think one of my go-tos anytime I'm camping with friends is a big breakfast to get us ready for the day is breakfast burritos, some hash brown sausage, eggs, some salsa on there. Nice.
How heavy is your backpack?
This is definitely more for a car camping trip.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And I would say if we're doing a little bit more primitive camping, one of the meals that I really enjoy and kind of seasonally is applicable right now is something that we call Thanksgiving one pot, which serves as a backpacking meal. And it takes all of the dry ingredients that would go into Thanksgiving. So think dried gravy, instant mashed potatoes, some cranberries, maybe some dried onion bits, and you put that all in your bowl and add some boiling water and mix it together. And it's like Thanksgiving in a single bite.
Wow, that sounds incredible. I'd actually eat that whether I was camping or not.
Sometimes I do.
Now, you did a road trip visiting 34 state parks from Tampa to Destin in 6 days. It's pretty intense. I'm assuming you did sleep on that trip.
I did. I got to camp at a few spots along the way. But yeah, I have a goal by the end of 2026 to hit all the state parks in Florida. So this was my first attempt to get a big swath of them knocked out.
Yeah. And what was the highlight?
One of my favorite state parks is called St. Joseph's Peninsula up in the Panhandle, and it has a beautiful kind of primitive section on the north tip of the peninsula where you can hike out through these dunes, or what I chose to do is take my paddleboard and paddle a few miles up the peninsula to a campsite, and you get to sleep in this awesome, really delicate dune environment. Got to eat dinner right on the beach watching the sunset, and just like awesome birds and just a beautiful environment. So that would probably be the highlight in one of my favorite state parks in Florida.
Yeah. What about sort of closer to home? Like, are there some really good spots you can start out to close to Tampa?
Yeah, I mean, some of my favorite spots around Tampa for camping specifically, I would say Fort DeSoto Park down near St. Pete is an awesome spot to camp, where you can camp and then bike out to the beach. There's some awesome snorkeling opportunities and an old fort you can explore. I think one of the other spots that's maybe farther from the coast, but is Hillsborough River State Park. Great camping for tents and RVs with some really cool trails along the very natural section of the Hillsborough River. And then just for a day outing, I think one of my favorite spots in Tampa would be Weeden Island, which is also north of St. Pete. Some really cool paddling trails through the very delicate ecosystem that are mangroves, and a cool boardwalk system to kind of see. And I was just there a few weeks ago, and it's a great time of year to go for birding as well as kind of the migratory season starts.
In the last 30 seconds or so, what do you got coming up over the break? Anything exciting?
Yeah, I'm actually planning 2 trips. A sea kayaking trip down to the Everglades, as I mentioned. I'll be leading our trip here in December, and then working on planning a trip up to the Swanee River with some friends right at the beginning of the year, which is an awesome wilderness trail with some developed campsites as well as camping right along the river and a good spot to see springs.
Stephen Costa is the Adventure Trips Coordinator at USF. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, that's our show for today. Next week on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about the increase in rates for people with Obamacare. Do you have Obamacare? Send us your questions. Leave a voicemail at 813-755-6562. You can email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org, and we'll talk about it next week. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Amelie Horace. Lily Belcher is our intern. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Gio Galvin. And Jackson composed our theme music. Malika Hollis handled the video today. You can subscribe to Florida Matters wherever you get your podcast. Watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for listening and watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
At WUSF, support comes from the people who listen, like you. Also, Suncoast Credit Union, whose local professionals are ready to support businesses with tailored products and services, from commercial real estate and investment loans to equipment financing and treasury management. Learn more at suncoast.com/nextlevel.
In Indonesia, there is an effort to stop heavy rains from causing environmental damage. Pilots fly planes into an approaching storm and trigger clouds to dump much of their rain over the ocean before reaching land.
We can conclude that it's efficient and it's successful.
Skeptics argue otherwise. That story next time on The World.
You can hear The World at 3 o'clock after Here and Now, which is next. You're listening to WUSF 89.7 Tampa, winner of the 2025 Edward R. Murrow National Award for Overall Excellence. This is your spot for local.
Funding for Here and Now comes from MathWorks, creator of MATLAB and Simulink software, accelerating the pace of engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com.
From NPR and WBUR Boston, I'm Alyssa Nadworny.
And I'm Lisa